Well, good afternoon, my YouTube friends. It's Margaret again from M.E.s Orchids, and what we're looking at now, well, this big enormous Rhyncholalia cattleya, Hey Song Tian Mu. And I often say when I'm answering comments that you've got to wait for that transition period, and which is very important before you can actually start either watering or feeding, and especially with these cattleyas, because what happens is nature, if they get disturbed, will abort the roots, and what that means is that they have to produce new roots. And so they have a period whereby their reserves in these pseudocanes, I call them pseudocanes because they're not thick like a pseudobulb. And so this one I've had quite a few weeks now, and this one came as a bare root. And so I've been waiting and waiting. And then all of a sudden it started to produce roots there, and there's one just tucked under there. Hopefully you'll see that, and there's actually some at the back here. You can see the roots because they're white. So then the next thing is to look for new growths, and the new growths I'm looking for are what we call eyes. And they're, what happens with cattleyas is they produce these eyes. I'll show you one that I've got in the mirror here. And let's see if I can show you whether you'll see that, because it's underneath. Can you see that eye there? Which is the best way to show you. And then that green there. Can you see under my finger? That area there is a new growth. And if we take the orchid around, oh, excuse that noise, sorry about that. That was just the magnifying glass. And if I gently lift this up, you'll see we've got another eye there. And then if I gently turn it round, what we're looking for is the possibility of other eyes. And there is a possibility we might have one there. But I don't know whether that's going to be viable, because there it's blackened. And can you see down there? But we have got the possibility of this eye here, that one, developing. But it's very precarious because it's just showing signs underneath that it could be viable. Some of them blacken, which means that the eye is dead and it won't come back. Now this one here has got this new growth, and I'll turn the camera around in a minute and you'll see this area here, which is one of the old pseudobulbs, and I've got to be very careful I don't water from above, because I don't want to have that blackened area turn into rot. So if I just turn it gently round again, and I'll show you. Now, this one here is the new growth. Now that new growth there is protected by this outer covering here, and eventually when it forms its roots and that other new eye comes out from the side to form another new growth, this sheath will eventually become like these others, where it's a protective sheath at the moment, and so I'm leaving that on. Now you'll see here this new growth is coming up here, and if I take you to that area, can you see it? And this one is producing the sorry about that, the just get this, there we go. It's producing the flower and sheath, we call it a sheath. So what do I do with this one now? Because it's I know it's going to be fine now because it's giving me new roots, and I've also got those eyes coming along nicely. So what I have to do with this one, and if I lift her up and bring her back here, because this hangs in the grow room. So what I do with this one now is I just take a cup of this fertilised water, and this fertilised water has got a TDS of 188 today, and it's just got calcium and some P&K. See, when we look at that one there, don't know if you'll see it. See if I can take you this way. That one here, even though it's got a damaged tip, I think that might be okay. So let's see if I can bring this round so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. And now it's no good watering these roots here because those are no good. But I need to hydrate it just enough to give those new roots some moisture. And all I do now is just pour. You won't see that, I do apologise. Pour this fertilised water over that bark. Now I don't do it over the whole bark because there's no point. You see, I got some over there then, didn't I? So, but it's warm enough so that will soon evaporate. And I'll just put a little bit round this area. And you see, I might be a little bit too OTT. In the sense that I'm ultra cautious when it comes to watering when they've got new eyes coming, and we've got a sign there of some rot. So I always never soak or spray a plant when it is in this transition period. Now you'll notice when I lift that up now, it's in this container, and can you see down there, there's a little bit at the back of that eye, but the rest of it, the rest of that bark I've not touched. I don't believe there's any need to touch the rest of that bark because there's nothing there. there's no roots being bedded down at all. There's that new eye there. And I'm waiting for this one here, this newest growth. When that's mature enough, and it's nearly there now because it's sending that sheath out, it'll then start to send the new roots out. So that's that one. And that was one that came bare rooted. Now, I'm going to have to move this. I'm going to get this one out now. Now this one is Cattleya Dusky Maid times RLC Bruce Randall. And again, this came bare rooted. So then, this has also been in that transitional period. And I've had to lose 1 or 2 leaves on this one. But you see, that's a new growth there. And this is actually a bifoliate. So it has 2 leaves. But it could be uniform foliate because this one's only got 1 leaf. And you see that area there? Well, that's where a leaf was, and that's where the new sheath will come from. Now, that hasn't gone, that's still, to me, viable, even though it hasn't got a leaf. But only time will tell. So I'm looking now for signs of this orchid transitioning for me. Because I know it's okay, because I've got not just that growth, I've got this new growth here, and I've got this new growth here. But what I'm looking for now is roots. And can you just see? There. Can you just see there? A root. Now that is my first indicator of the new roots. Now it did have some viable roots, but they haven't got the green growing tips. You see there and there. So I have watered it, but not excessively, because I need this one to give me that indicator. And there's that indicator. So I've got a root emerging on both sides of that cane, which is marvellous. Now this one, it's rather top heavy and it sits in another outer one, but to water this, that's how it's got to be watered and fed. And I'll leave it in here for quite a while, because I've got this one growing just in lava rock. And it'll take a while for that moisture to be absorbed by the lava rock. And then 2 or 3 or 4 days time, I should be doing the same procedure again. There's another one, you see. Can you see that area where I lost a leaf? And it looks as though we could have still a viable sheath coming there. Anyway, so that's 2 bare rooted ones which have now adapted to my environment. This took longer, which was worrying, but finally at last I can breathe a sigh of relief. And I'll just put this one down here. It's horrendously hot today in the grow room. And I've watered as much as I can. I should be watering again later as well. Now this one is Dendrobium Li Chang Yi Miriam, and it's Secundum times Similii or Simili. Now this came in coconut husk. And so this really was stripped bare. And I checked what the growing conditions were, and I put it on this big mount here, tied some of the canes. You can see I've tied a cane there. And the first indicators, I had a feeling several weeks ago that I might be okay and I might have a viable eye. And can you see? Now that has taken weeks, and when I looked today, when I was watering it today, I don't know if you'll notice that little bit of white, but that's a root. I mean, I did know it's got roots at the back here and they've attached to the bark, but that, you see, that's its last leaf. And you'll see how wrinkled it went. This one is very wrinkled. And what worried me more than anything was the fact that it could rot back. But it hasn't rotted back because I only ever water this way. I water down. And I don't let any water run onto these canes. Because in my environment, if I let water run onto these canes here, I could well get rot. Now this is the newest growth here. It has this tendency just to twist its leaves. Now I don't know whether it twists them because it's not quite hydrated enough. I have a feeling it's doing that because it's not quite hydrated enough, but it's showing roots there, and we've got roots attached down in there. And then this last few waterings, I've noticed that this particular cane here has started to fatten up a bit. See, I've got that tied on there for stability. So that's started to fatten up a bit now. And this one here, that's also started to fatten up. But you see what I mean, where you could easily set off rot. So that's the reason that when I water them this way, and then they stand. You see, there's no dripping water now. So they stand that way. And that's a success now. So I'm very pleased with that one. Just bear with me. I thought I'd just end on this Vanda, and I've got 3 Vandas, and this is Vanda Adisac Happiness. This is one of the first Vandas that I got, and it's got a lovely big root system, but I couldn't keep them hydrated. So what I did, I twisted the roots round and round and round, and they're inside this pot. And at the bottom of the pot's also that type of linen. You can see how hydrated they are because I've had this sat in the fertilised water. And in the transition of me trying to get it in here, that root was bruised, that root was bruised, and that root was bruised. There. But we had this root here, there. That wasn't a viable root at all. It was in one of those little square baskets. And that root there had butted up against one of the baskets and was, to all intents and purposes, quite dead. But out of that has emerged this new root. That one's a little bit slow. It's got a green growing tip on it, but it's a little bit slow. And then some of these others you'll see where they've branched. And so I've had that a while now. There's no signs of any flowers yet. Mind you, I'm not expecting them this year. There we go. Just to get them through the winter, and hopefully next spring I can look down these fans here and see whether or not it's going to give me any flowers. So I just thought I'd bring you back just to talk about this transition period that when I answer comments, I'm always talking about this transition period. And I used to think my transition period, I used to think I was cool to intermediate my environment, but actually I'm more inclined to think now my environment's probably in the winter intermediate, but certainly during the summer I'm warm. So I can grow a lot of these Vandaceous types without any problem. But the problem will be when I come to get them through the winter months. So thank you for joining me again, and for your patience, and thank you all to my new subscribers, and I do hope this has been of some use to somebody. So from me to you, take care. Bye bye now.